Okay, so we have our next focus activity. I'm hoping to get another one, a fifth one, by the time we turn them in. We're going to be turning those in on Tuesday, but I'll let you know if we do one. It'll be definitely not tomorrow, maybe Friday, but I want to give you as much time as possible for what's going to happen, so I'll keep you posted on that. The big item, don't forget about the test coming up on Monday. It's going to have everything we've discussed so far when it comes to trig. The first lesson, the quiz you're taking today, you want to be familiar with all that material, coterminal angles, reference angles, how to convert from radians to degrees and back again, DMS, okay, degrees, minutes, seconds. You want to be familiar with that. And then, of course, you need to know your 6 trig functions, how to work around a right triangle with those. And we're actually going to look at some word problems today because you'll have some on the exam. Now, I haven't posted them yet. I'm going to be doing that during my conference period. I've got some extra word problems with the answers that I'm going to go ahead and post there. If you're looking for some extra work, just practice for the exam. Okay, you'll have that. But other than that, I think we're good to go. Number 1. Given the function f of x shown below, determine the algebraic representation for f of x, its inverse, and any domain restrictions applicable on f of x when determining the inverse function. Okay, so this was number 4 off your district assessment. In fact, this one, the previous focus activity, and the number 2 coming up, these were the 3 most missed problems on the assessment. So the fact that we have multiple choice is going to make this a lot easier. Let's just go ahead and start by finding the equation of my quadratic. How's he been transformed? Okay, so definitely up 2, and how far left? So that would be x plus 3. Okay, so does that help me eliminate any answers? G is out because the minus 3 says he'd be shifted right. Okay, so that's out.
Teachers, pardon the interruption. If you have any German students in your class, that what I mean is those students that are taking German class. Thank you.
Do we have any students taking German? Yep. You are taking German? Okay. All right, so let's move on. All right, so think back to inverses. We always applied a horizontal line test to our graphs because we were very interested to know if our graph was what? 1-to-1. That's what I'm looking for. Now, we want to know if it's 1-to-1 or not because that tells me whether the inverse will be a function or not. Remember, we like our inverses to be functions. So, would he pass the horizontal line test? No, he is not 1-to-1. Now, if he was 1-to-1, we don't have to worry about any restrictions. We don't have to do a thing. We find the inverse and we're done with the problem. But the fact that he's not 1-to-1, I have to restrict him in some way because I want to guarantee that inverse is a function. So knowing that, does that help me eliminate any answers? F, because that one says no restrictions. Well, we know we have to restrict it in some way. Okay, now, when we talked about this, there was no right or wrong way to do it. The parabola, you could cut loose the right side, you can cut loose the left side. So let's look at what the answers say. We're going to restrict it, x everything greater than or equal to -3, or all x greater than or equal to 2. Well, let me go ahead and draw a vertical line for -3, and then here's the 2. Okay. So which one's going to make more sense with what we're wanting to accomplish? Yeah, we want to go ahead and restrict him so that he only exists from -3 or larger, so we're going to go ahead and cut this guy off. See, now he's 1-to-1, so the inverse is going to be a function. So without even finding the inverse, I know the answer has to be h. Okay. Now, just for practice, let's go ahead and find the inverse. And how do I do that? Yeah, switch the x and the y in the equation. So I'm going to say x equals quantity y plus 3 squared plus 2. First thing, I'm going to subtract the 2 is equal to y plus 3 squared. Now what? Okay, take the square root because we want to get rid of that square. So this radical would equal y plus 3. So the square root of x minus 2 minus 3 would equal y. Now, because we guaranteed that this guy was a function, my last step is to replace y with that inverse notation. You notice the square root of x minus 2 minus 3 is what we did end up with when we chose h. Okay. All right. Questions. Does anybody remember what answer they chose on that? I haven't looked at the data since that last Friday. No? Do you remember the problem? Kind of? Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at what we're calling number 2, but this was number 10 off the district assessment. Okay. It says a retail salesperson earns a 4% commission for sales over $750 per week, plus a weekly salary of $480. Assuming enough merchandise is sold to earn commission, which of the following sets of functions and composite function represent the weekly commission earned? So what is the one value here that we actually don't need? Yeah, we don't need the 480. That's just extra information. Now, it's definitely going to be important to the salesperson, but we're just talking about earning commission off of everything, what? Over $750.
It's just supposed to be sales, period.
Oh, okay. All right, so welcome back. Okay, so you'll notice, take a look at your answers. We either have 750 minus x or x minus 750, where x is going to represent the amount of sales you're going to make in a week. So what would make more sense? Would it be 750 minus x or x minus 750? Because what does the problem say? We want over $750, so it would have to be x minus 750. You only get that 4% if it's over 750. So any answer that says 750 minus x, that's already gone. Okay, so right now we've got it down to a 50-50 shot. Now, one other thing that could possibly have helped you if we hadn't already eliminated the answer, what's 4% as a decimal? 0.04, okay, and unfortunately they're all 0.04 except for the one we've already eliminated, so that doesn't help me any further. That would be nice though, earning 40% commission. It's not going to happen. Okay, so what's the only difference between G and J now? It's the composition, right? Okay, so F is where you're finding the amount of money over $750. G is where you're going to take that amount and multiply it by 4% to get your extra commission, your money, right? So what's going to make more sense? If I go ahead and find the difference first and then apply the percentage, or if I apply the percentage and then find the difference? You got to find the difference because that's the amount you're going to take the percentage of. So it has to be G. You guys remember this problem? Okay. A lot of people in the previous classes so far are just telling me they guessed. Do you guys remember what you put? You put G? There you go. There was a handful of people who did get it right, but the majority did, unfortunately, get this one wrong. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, go ahead and put that someplace safe. You got 4 of those now. They are going to be turned in on Tuesday. Bless you. But hopefully we'll get a 5th one in there, and we'll see what happens. All right, so I've given you a copy of the 2 word problems that we're going to go ahead and look at today. This one, I decided, you can either just follow along, or if you just want to go ahead and sketch it very quickly. This is just kind of a review of what we were doing the past couple of days. So it says solve the given triangle. So if you have a problem where it just says solve the triangle, that means you want to find every missing angle and side length there is. So here it says round side lengths and angle measures to the nearest tenth, if necessary. Okay. Well, the angle here, x, we don't need to do anything fancy to go ahead and find him, because whatever this angle is plus 61, it's got to be complementary, right? Shayna, what is that? What plus 61 would give me 90? 29. So right there, we already have 29. Okay. So the only thing I want to do here is go ahead and find y and z. Now let's go ahead and revisit our trig functions. Remember, there are 6 of them. We definitely need to know these and be comfortable with them for the exam. Okay, so you got your homework here. This is going to be due on Friday. Okay, so the plan for Friday, you'll come in. We'll go ahead and grade the homework like we normally do, questions. The rest of the period, I'm going to go ahead and give you an exit ticket. And it's going to be a word problem similar to the ones we're going to go ahead and do today, but I'm going to give you a heads up. This one is much more challenging. Okay? This one's going to be more difficult than the ones we've looked at. So you're going to have to use some algebra skills along with the trig functions to help you solve it. Okay, so we'll see how you guys do on that. I'm sure you're going to do just fine. All right, so first off, we need to go ahead and decide, Stephanie, do you want to work with 29 or 61? What angle do you like? 29, okay. So now, it was more the afternoon classes that was asking me to go ahead and do this, but I'll go ahead and do it here. Since we're choosing to work with 29, let's go ahead and label the three sides. Okay, what would 18 be to 29? That would be the opposite. It is directly across from it. We know the hypotenuse is always directly across from the 90-degree angle, so that's y in this case. And the only one left has to be my what? Adjacent. Okay. So sine. What was sine's ratio? Opposite over hypotenuse. Savion, what was sine's reciprocal? True, but what trig function does that? Cosecant, okay. The reciprocal of sine is cosecant, and he's right. It's hypotenuse over the opposite. Okay. Let's see. Kimberly, what's the reciprocal of cosine? Secant. Okay, so cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So what's secant? Hypotenuse over adjacent. Okay. And Connor, finish it up. What's the reciprocal of tangent? Cotangent. Cotangent. Okay, so tangent is opposite over adjacent. So Xavier, what's cotangent? What over what? Adjacent over opposite. Yes, there you go. Okay, we really want to be comfortable with that because that's going to be the foundation for everything we do from here on in trigonometry. Okay, so we're using 29. Do we find y or z first? It doesn't matter. It's completely your choice. Ford, what do you like? Why not? Okay. So y. So the only side length I have is 18, so we're looking at a hypotenuse and an opposite. Out of all those that I mentioned, what trig function uses an opposite and a hypotenuse? We could use sine. Okay. So I can go ahead and say sine of 29 degrees equals the opposite 18 over the hypotenuse y. But now there's another one we could go ahead and use to find the answer. Cosecant. I could also say cosecant of 29 degrees is equal to the hypotenuse over the opposite. Either one of these is going to give you the answer you're looking for. It does not matter. And you don't even, if you're solving a problem like this, you don't have to write both. I'm just wanting you to see that you have the options and to also practice them. Which one do we want to solve? Sine or cosecant? Let's go with cosecant. All I have to do is multiply both sides by 18. So 18 cosecant of 29. So let me see what that is. I'm going to go over here because the TV has not been very kind to me today with that. So let me document B out of here. Okay, so we have 18. Here's my trig button right here over on the left of 7. We were going cosecant, what was it, 29? So what should I be getting? Okay, I got 37.128. Everybody's okay with that? Okay, just simple trigonometry. Okay, right triangles. So we found this guy to be 37.1. Now here also you have another choice. Okay, so we're done with y. We only need z. I could set up another trig function to help me find him, or I could use what? I could use Pythagorean theorem because I now have two sides of the right triangle. Okay, what do we want to do? Pythagorean theorem? Okay. So with the hypotenuse, let's go ahead and say z. So that would be z squared is equal to the hypotenuse 37.1 squared minus the leg 18 squared. Okay. So I just went ahead and manipulated the formula and solved it for that missing leg. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and do this because we already had an expression for the 37.1 in my calculator. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say the square root, but instead of just typing in 37.1, I'm going to use the actual value itself. Okay, and then minus the 18 squared. So that's going to give me a more approximate answer. Because generally you want to avoid rounding in the middle of solving your problem. So what am I going to get here? Now let me ask you a question. Should it be longer or shorter than the 37.1? Should be shorter because the 37.1 was your, wasn't a leg, hypotenuse, and it's got to be the longest side. Sabian, what'd you get? 32.472. That's exactly what I get. Okay. So let's say 32.5, rounding to the nearest tenth. And there we go. Okay, there you go. Questions? Okay. Now let's get to some word problems. That's what you guys are really going to be excited about. Okay, so here's this one. Now, these you have copies of. Okay. It says on a roller coaster, 375 feet of track ascend at a 55-degree angle of elevation to the top before the first and highest drop. Okay, so what do you think the angle of elevation is with respect to? The ground, okay. So I'm going to draw a right triangle. So let's say like this. Okay. So the base will, of course, be the ground. There's a 55-degree angle of elevation. Where's the 375 go? What would that represent? That'd be the hypotenuse. 375 feet. Okay, because you're going along the track and then you start to go up the first hill, you know, tick, 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 and this is where you start to realize, I really don't want to do this. No, don't make me do that. Ah! That went over about as well in the other classes as well, so I think that'll be the last time I do it. Okay, so what are we trying to find here? The height of the roller coaster, so the highest point before you go ahead and run down that first hill. So there's my x. Okay, so you'll have a problem on there that's just as straightforward as this one. Okay, no problems. So what is x to 55? The opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? It's the opposite. We already said 375 is going to be my hypotenuse. So what trig function will use opposite and hypotenuse? Sine would work. So sine of 55 is going to equal the opposite x over the hypotenuse 375. Does anybody want me to set up the other one? What would the other trig function be? Cosecant. Okay. That'd be cosecant of 55 equals 375 over x. Well, how do I solve this? Just multiply through by 375. Okay, so let me figure out what that is. Again, make sure your calculator is in degrees, because if it's in radians, it's going to give you something way off. So 375 times the sine, what was it, 55? What should I get? How tall is the roller coaster? 300 what? 307, that's what I'm getting. So let's say about 307 feet. Anybody having any difficulty, any trouble? Okay. Now I know what you're thinking. Wow, Mr. West, that's way too easy. I want something more challenging. Okay. I heard you, and here we go. Let's try this one. It says 2 ships are spotted from the top of a 156-foot lighthouse. The first ship is at a 27-degree angle of depression, and the second ship is directly behind the first at a 7-degree angle of depression. Okay, first, draw a diagram to represent the situation, and then B, determine the distance between the 2 ships. So what you're going to be doing here, you're going to have one triangle inscribed inside of the other. So you're going to be dealing with 2 right triangles. Okay, so take about a minute, try to draw out what you believe the diagram's going to be. Think about all the information that you have. And if it helps you, you don't have to inscribe them. If you want to separate the two triangles, if that's better for you, then by all means, go ahead and do it. And don't forget, our student teacher will be here tomorrow to go ahead and teach you some more word problems and talk to you about inverses. And her name is? Miss Stern, Landry Stern. There we go. Okay, Landry Stern. All right, so you may not have finished, and that's okay. But let me go ahead because we do have to get on with our quiz. So even if yours is reversed, I mean the information should still be the same. Here's what I did. I started with this right here. So what would this height represent? So let's say that's the lighthouse. That's my 156-foot tall lighthouse. So out from it, okay, in the ocean, you've got some ships. So let's say the first ship is right here, and the second ship is right at the end of it. So from the top of the lighthouse, looking down to the first, and looking down to the second. Okay, so we know this is 156 feet. Okay. Now, we're talking about an angle of depression. So you're standing at the top of this lighthouse. You're looking out. Oh, I see some ships. It just makes sense to me the guy would be a pirate. I don't know. Okay. Man, this is a tough room. Okay. Anyways, you're looking straight out. Okay. So we've got our line of sight. Okay. So your line of sight is going to be parallel to the ground, and of course to the water level itself. So from that, you have your angle of depression. You've got to look down. So the closer ship, it makes sense. You've got to look further down because he's closer, but you don't have to look as far down for the other one because he's further away from the lighthouse. Okay, so for the first ship, what's the angle of depression? 27 degrees. So from the line of sight here to the hypotenuse of the smaller triangle, that is 27 degrees. Okay, so 7 degrees is the angle of depression to the second ship. So that would be to the hypotenuse of the larger one. So this right here would be 7 degrees. Okay. Now with that, we have all the information I need to answer the question. They want us to figure out the distance between the two ships. We want these right here. Well, can anybody tell me what's this angle at the base of the smaller triangle? This angle right here. It is 27. What's the angle here at the base of the larger one? That is 7 degrees. Now, just in case there's somebody out there who's wondering why, what idea from geometry did we use to help us with that? It starts with a T. Not trigonometry. It's a good T word, though. What do we call a line that intersects two or more other lines? Now, tangent only intersects in one place. Transversal. There we go. So let me go ahead and highlight this in a color for you. So let's say our line of sight with the ground, two parallel lines intersected by a third. So do you guys remember same side interior, coinciding, all that? These 27s, what are they? Ooh, not corresponding. They're not in the same position. They're alternate interior. If they were outside the lines being intersected, then they would be alternate exterior. Okay. So by that geometry principle, we can go ahead and say that we know those base angles, and I have everything I need. Now, here's how I solved the problem. Oop, that was weird. Bloop, bloop. Okay. I went ahead and said, I mean, there's different ways you can do this, but I said the base of the smaller triangle is x, and the base of the larger triangle is y. Well, why is that going to help me? If I knew those two values, what could I then do? Yeah, just subtract them, and that should be the distance that your ships are going to be apart from each other. Okay, so now let's get to the trig aspect of it. What is 156 to the 27 degrees? Adjacent, opposite, or hypotenuse? It's the opposite. Okay. So what is x? X would be the adjacent. Okay. So what trig function is going to use opposite and adjacent? We can use tangent. So if I say tangent of 27 degrees, now remember that's opposite over adjacent, 156 over x. Now it's not the one that we normally use, okay, because we like to go ahead and just multiply through by the denominator, but we haven't seen one of these yet, so let's go ahead and do this. What's the other one that would work? Cotangent. Now even if you choose a trig function where your unknown is in the denominator, I'm still going to multiply through by it, so those cancel. So x would just equal 156 divided by the tangent of 27 degrees. You see what I did? All I did was divide through by the tangent function. Okay. So that should tell me from the base of the lighthouse how far the ship is away from it. So let's see, 156 divided by the tangent of 27. Let me go ahead and document B out of here. So 156, okay, tangent 27. So I'm getting about, oops, yeah, hang on. I need 156 divided by, excuse me. Just seeing if you're paying attention. It was 27, right? Okay. All right, that's better. I'm getting 306 feet. Okay. Well, now let's just go ahead and do the same thing for the larger triangle. Okay. So to 7, 156 would still be the opposite. The base of the larger would still be your adjacent. Do you want to stick with tangent or go cotangent? Let's go cotangent. So cotangent of 7 degrees. Now he equals adjacent over the opposite. So this would be y over the 156. And as we've seen several times, I would just go ahead and multiply both parts by that. Okay. So let's see what that comes out to be. 156 cotangent of 7. Cotangent of 7. All right, so here I'm getting that second ship is about 1,270 feet away from the base of the lighthouse. Okay. Now, if I want to know how far they are from each other, okay, again, I'm not going to go ahead and use my values here. I'm going to go ahead and use the ones from the calculator. So the distance of the second ship minus the distance of the first ship, I'm getting them to be about 964.3 feet away from each other. So 964 feet. Ford? Why is the degree 27 and not 20? Because that's what we were given. The angle of depression is 27 degrees. Okay. So what do we end up with? 900 what? 964? So this distance here, 964 feet. Okay. So half of your, hold on folks, half of your test is going to be just very similar to this quiz, just very straightforward questions. Here's a radian measure. Give it to me in degrees. Okay, what's one positive and one coterminal angle to this angle provided? Okay, but then the other part are going to be these word problems. Okay, so I haven't posted it yet. I'm going to be posting additional problems next class period. Okay, so if you're looking for some extra practice, I'm going to have the answers with them. You can go ahead and do so. For what? Uh-huh. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, and that horizontal can be a lot of different things, whether line of sight or even the ground. But yeah, you always start with the horizontal and then you rotate up or down. That's right. Okay. Questions? Anything else? We feeling better about the test? Okay. Well, if you will clear your desk for me. Okay. You need your calculator and your pen or pencil. Connor, if you turn on that light. Okay. All right. Don't forget, your homework is due Friday. We'll also have an exit ticket on Friday. Focus activities will be due Tuesday, the 9th. Okay. All right. And I haven't had a chance to grade second periods yet, but first period's average was 95.5. Okay. So the grades are coming back. I think I've only had a few people fail so far. So these are coming back very nicely. Okay, you guys have always done a great job about this. Please no talking during the quiz. Hang on to it when you're done. If you want to go ahead and work on your homework, that would probably be a really good idea. Okay, because once everybody's done, I'll give you a bonus question, and then we'll go ahead and pick those up. Mhm. All right.